Welcome to the Wohlers audio series. My name is Noah Mostow, and I'll be hosting this week's episode. In this series, we're going to be talking to experts from the additive manufacturing community to discuss their perspectives in the future of 3D printing. Today, we're talking to Terry Wohlers, the president of Wohlers Associates. Terry is a leader in the industry and has done more than 165 keynote presentations, worked with more than 275 organizations worldwide, as well as written more than 435 books, articles, and publications. Terry is the creator of the Wohlers Report, and for full disclosure, he's my boss. Welcome, Terry, and I'm excited to ask you some questions.
Hey, thanks, Noah. Good to be here. Thanks for the nice words. Appreciate it.
Of course. So to get started, let's really take a step back and look at how this all started. So you began Wohlers Associates in the late 80s, and then in 1996, you started the first Wohlers Report, or State of the Industry Report on 3D printing. Can you discuss how the perspective and really the creation of the Wohlers Report started?
Sure, I'll give that a shot. It was a long time ago. It was, well, decades ago. It was 1986 when Wohlers Associates was launched. And then a few years later, 1996, about 10 years later, when the Wohlers Report was launched. And I guess over the first 10 years, I sensed a need for an industry-wide publication that tried to capture the state of the industry worldwide. And so it started out small with few contributors. And then over the years, we invited people to participate and contribute. And fortunately, people agreed to help. And today we have, if you count the entire team, including the staff and the contributors from 30 some countries, it's more than 90 people that worked on Wohlers Report 2021. So it's come a long ways in the past 26 years, and we're quite proud of the progress we made.
Yeah, it's really impressive about their growth. I'll say, as a principal author for Wohlers Report 2021, I've read a lot from the past few years, but to prepare for this conversation today, I also have reviewed the early 5 years of creating this report, and it has grown a lot, I can say. One of the questions that I'm interested to hear from you is really, what's your perspective on the growth of the Wohlers Report, as well as the growth of the 3D printing industry? How have those grown together and separately?
Yeah, so we tried to keep the Wohlers Report in step with the developments in the industry, and we wanted to track the most interesting trends, but also look into the future, and while tracking, also trying to share some leadership thoughts and where this all might go. And so, yeah, it's, one thing that's interesting about additive manufacturing, 3D printing, of course, those are terms that are used interchangeably, is that something is happening constantly, if not daily, certainly weekly. And so there's not a lack of things to learn about and report on. So it's, I sometimes joke it's a full-time job. Well, it is. It's a full-time, I've made it a full-time job over the last 30 plus years. And so we've done our very best to keep it up to date, the report, and while doing our best to understand the most interesting develops, products, applications that, how companies are putting the technology to work. And then trying to, what does that mean? What do those activities mean? And then to include our interpretation of that activity in the Wohlers Report.
Yeah, I think From my perspective, another aspect of the Wohlers Report that really sets it apart from others is the worldwide contributions. So for Wohlers Report 2021, we had more than 88 contributors from 34 countries around the world. Could we take a step back, and when this report started, it was you, is that correct?
Yeah, I was the solo author of the report, although I received inputs from, a range of people and companies. So, and not just companies, but, research organizations, government agencies, of course, universities. And so I don't think any one person can expect to know what's going on worldwide in isolation. You really need to have a network of people, or at least a network of friends who can provide input. And of course, now we've been getting it directly from this large network over the last several years. But that first edition, because it was somewhat experimental, not sure where it might go, and so you start out relatively small, and then you build on what you've created.
It's definitely grown. How have you seen the perspective on the Wohlers Report grow as well, from the early years to now, where I'll put quotes around this, but people call it the Bible of 3D printing, or the industry leading report? Was that something that people have been calling it from the beginning, or really how has this report grown in the eyes of the additive manufacturing community?
Well, it's absolutely flattering to hear those comments from people when they're not invited. They just come out, from others who have purchased it year after year, and so yeah, I mean, it's I don't know that it's deserved, but it certainly is appreciated, and I guess to attempt to earn some level of status, it takes some years to do that, some repeatability. We do our very best to put out the highest of quality, and we just want to give an honest assessment of the industry. Sometimes certainly the good, sometimes the bad, and we try to be fair, but we want to be realistic with it's not all sugar coated. We want to present really how it is out in industry. Sometimes these products and services don't always work as they should, or as they come across by the companies that put them out. So, and it's not easy. And in fairness to them, it's a lot of work to put together a solid product or service. And so, but we want the readers, they deserve to hear it like it is. And so we do our very best to really present an accurate view of how these products and services are being applied.
Yeah, the report's pretty amazing on how non-biased it is. There's nothing that it is really, this is like sugar coated. It is very straightforward. And I know that's something from my perspective, which I really appreciate about the report itself. Now, to take a step away from the report and really looking at the additive manufacturing industry, I know your crystal ball might be broken or a little hazy because it's hard to really see into the future, but you're someone who's really watched this industry grow and seen how it's changed over the years. What do you think is next? What are the next potential big developments within this industry?
Well, yeah, I've given that a lot of thought, as have tens, if not hundreds of other people, maybe even thousands at this point, trying to anticipate what's next, and where should they position themselves professionally? Where should their organizations, how should they be positioned to really seize the opportunities being presented by the technology? So I've said for years, the last few years, that that really the next big frontier is the use of the technology for actual production quantities. So that means, series manufacturing. And, a number of companies have done that for several years, but it's still more the exception than the rule. The more routine use of the technology is for making models and prototype parts for form, fit, and function, some interesting tooling applications, but building final production parts really elevates it to another level in terms of quality. Some would argue that it's 2, 3, 4 times more difficult, maybe even an order of magnitude more challenging to get to that those quality standards in terms of accuracy, repeatability, material properties, and so forth. And so, but companies are doing it, both the customers of the products and services, but also the ones offering these products and services. And when I say products, I'm really referring to the machines, materials, software, and other ancillary products, automation equipment that work in conjunction with these machines. And then the services, certainly the large and impressive network of service providers out there that are, many of which have transitioned from really being more of a prototyping shop to a contract manufacturer. And so these companies together are working to really move the needle from only more of a prototyping tool, which is still critically important to apply the technology for prototyping, and then to use the same process and materials for production, which is unusual in manufacturing. Typically, you prototype with one process, then you switch to a different set of materials and processes to manufacture. Here's an opportunity to actually prototype your process and your materials because you're using the same device. And so companies are working hard at it. And so that's where I see the big opportunity. That's where the money is. It's in manufacturing. As important as prototyping is, it's a small fraction of the value, not value, I should say, if you look at a product development and manufacturing program, you may spend 1% or 5% on product development and prototyping, but then the rest of the money goes into manufacturing. And so that's where the money is, and that's where companies are taking this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. This is the next frontier. Are there applications beyond the main headlines focus on the developments in the aerospace community, the developments in the automotive community or the medical community? Do you see more applications or industries that really are standing out beyond just these 3 or 4?
Well, we're beginning to see some other industrial sectors that are adopting the technology in interesting ways. One is the energy sector, wind, solar, oil, gas, and so forth. And so they've become a major user. They have been for a long time, but they're again more for prototyping and some tooling applications, but now they're wanting to apply, and some are to actual manufacturing. Some that are maybe further out are medicine, and I'm referring to the actual printing of pharmaceuticals, actual drugs. We're seeing some interesting work in that area. Of course, for years we've watched companies, mostly R&D efforts around the 3D printing of living tissue, and that's exciting. The whole idea of regenerative medicine and printing living cells taken from your body and then produced in a way that could then be implanted into you, and the risk of rejection is much lower because they're cells from your body, not someone else's. And so we've seen a lot of work around both soft and hard tissue in that area. Food printing is an interesting one too. I don't know that we know exactly where it's going to end up, but my thinking is that people who are in the food business today, the the large brands, but then also maybe some of the more local bakeries and some of those types of companies will get into it. Will we have a food printer at home? Possibly, but we have sewing machines at home too, but how many people produce their own clothes today with a sewing machine? So I see that if you have an event coming up, like an anniversary or some celebration, you call up or go onto the website and you send the logo or picture of somebody, whatever it might be, and they produce a set of chocolates or candies or whatever as giveaways for a wedding in the shape of the bride and groom, or use your imagination as to what you could do there. But and then those are delivered or picked up, and so rather than you producing them yourselves. So there's a lot of possibilities there, and proof of concept is we've seen a lot of that. So I mean, in theory, it's more than just theory. We have seen some real practical applications. Now the devil's in the details is in terms of driving cost out and producing higher quality product that's affordable.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement within these growing opportunities. The first time I met you, I talked about 3D printing food and specifically steaks. I have a lot of excitement around that personally. Terry, I could keep talking to you for hours, and realistically, we will keep talking. But for this episode, is there anything else that you want to add? And of course, hopefully we'll have more conversations to talk about the future as well as the history of the Wohlers Report.
I might just say this, that I just feel lucky to be a part of this industry. It's such an exciting area, and it spans across so many areas, whether it's sporting goods or fashion industry, jewelry, aerospace, medicine. It's hard to name an industrial sector that's not being impacted. I mean, you look around the room and it's like, well, yeah, these items were probably prototyped, and in the future, some of them could be manufactured. And so it's just so much fun to get up in the morning, go to work, and learn what others are doing. So it's just a real privilege to be a part of the industry.
I agree. Thank you, Terry, for taking the time to have this conversation and have it recorded. I'm excited to continue these conversations with you and other experts within the industry, and look forward to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. Appreciate it.